Hey everybody, it's Party Lead here with another episode of Total Breakdown. Today we're kicking off a 5-game series between the Gobble King and Mookip from a recent tournament. These are both fantastic players, and the Gobble King has a YouTube channel of his own you can find linked down below. Here we'll see him lead the Greenskins against Mookip's Dark Elves at the Pillar of Bone. We begin of course with talk of composition and deployment, and composition plays a key role in today's battle especially. We have Azag the Slaughterer in charge of the Greenskins, and up front you can see we've got 4 units of Savage Orcs, alongside some Savage Orc Biggins to the left and to the right. A lot of magical resistance as you can see, and that's a good idea against the Dark Elves, who often won't bring enough magical damage output as they have very few cheap choices outside of magic itself. Back here as well you can see some Orc Biggins, and that caps off this anti-large rear guard, while in the center here we've got an Arachnarok Queen towering in the middle alongside a pair of Squigherd. Up front as well, you can see we've got some Goblin Wolf Chariots over here, and then we've got some nasty Skulkers stalking their way up here and over here. While on the other side of the field, the Dark Elves are being led by none other than Morathi herself, up in the air, anti-large and armor-piercing. She can be quite a threat to Azag up in the air if she's able to close the gap. She's a little bit slower though. Up front you can see we've got 3 units of Sisters of Slaughter alongside the Blades of the Blood Queen, Hargoneth Executioners, anti-infantry and armor-piercing in the middle over here, and then they are supported by these Dread Spears on either flank, as well as the Sisters of the Singing Doom right behind the center, while we have some Shades able to fire away armor-piercing missiles as soon as possible, alongside these Cold One Knights tucked away in the trees over here that'll bring in some armor-piercing and anti-large capabilities. Now you can see already we're getting some of these Shades being spotted as these Goblin Wolf Chariots push forward to get some early aggression in. Of course, use them as skirmishing units, fire in, get some shots into these Sisters of Slaughter, and pull back right away as those Shades open fire. Not a bad call at all. Good micromanagement, good awareness. Very little damage done there to the Goblin Wolf Chariot, while you can see off to the right a bit of a similar story over here as the Goblin Wolf Chariot and these nasty Skulkers push forward to close the gap and get some early shots. And the Dread Spears of course have their silver shields, so they're not too scared about shots from the front, but the Goblin Wolf Chariot is able to go far enough to spot these Cold One Knights. So both Cold One Knights have been revealed as the front lines from the Greenskins are trying to close the gaps over here, and this is where the Sisters of Slaughter and Sisters of the Singing Doom are all probably second-guessing their choices of being on the field here against these Savage Orcs. In comes the Arachnarok Queen, but take a look at how much damage it has taken after being shot by all of those Shades. Coming in from both sides here, the Shades have caused a fair bit of damage to health and to morale, and Morathi over here as well, diving and hoping to cause a fair bit of damage herself. Again, anti-large and armor-piercing, she can do a lot of work. And as that's happening, you can see Wah kicks in across the board, and we have all of these Savage Orcs diving into the various frontline units of the Dark Elves, pushing in towards these Sisters of Slaughter, the Blades of the Blood Queen, and we also have the Sisters of the Singing Doom actually coming in to provide some support on this right flank over here, hoping to topple these Savage Orcs before they're able to cause too much damage. And you can see almost instantaneously the front line is doing terribly for the Dark Elves. We get the Squigherd coming in as well. Again, these Squigherd can cause a fair bit of damage as well. They're armor-piercing and anti-infantry, and you can see at the same time to the right over here we actually have these Cold One Knights able to close the gap into these Goblin Wolf Chariots, trying to shut them down once and for all, as this other unit of Goblin Wolf Chariots comes in from the rear, hoping to close the gap into some of these Shades perhaps and shut them down before they're able to do too much more. As you can see, this Arachnarok Queen has already taken a lot of hurt from all of those shots from the Shades. Again, armor-piercing shots will do a lot of work to the Arachnarok Queen, and the Queen herself is trying to get involved. Some of these Hargoneth Executioners, the Blades of the Blood Queen, are having a terrible time surrounded by Squigherd, as well as these Savage Orcs, and the Squigherd, as you can see, are trying to push through into some of these Shades, but these Cold One Knights beautifully move in to intercept those Squigherd and make sure that they're not able to actually shut down any of that range support. As over here, the Arachnarok Queen giving up on the fight, routing very quick, very early on in the battle here. As you can see, we've got some of these Cold One Knights pushing in as well to provide some assistance as we get Murderous Prowess activated. We also get Spirit Leech hit on the Cold One Knights over here, trying to take care of that cavalry unit as quickly as possible, while in the center here you can see we actually have all of these Greenskin units giving up on the fight as Morathi decides to get involved. But to the left over here you can see the Sisters of Slaughter almost taken care of, and to the right over here as well you can see these Dread Spears very close to giving up on the fight thanks to these Savage Orc Biggins causing a fair bit of damage and taking very little. Morathi meanwhile looking for an opportunity to get involved somewhere, chasing after Azag, but she is a little bit slower, so Azag, as long as he's careful, as long as he doesn't let himself get cut off, he will be very safe. And you can see over here we've got these Shades all pulling in to try and get some shots, I think, into Azag the Slaughterer as well, as Azag himself pulls a very cheeky move over here, I think, tries to come in, get a nice rear charge into these Dread Spears in the hopes of baiting Morathi into these anti-large Savage Orc Biggins, but unfortunately she's too smart for that. She turns around and dives into this clump over here instead, right into these Orc Biggins, hoping to take care of these guys as they are rampaging right now, hit by the Madness of Cain thanks to the Sisters of the Singing Doom. And you can see Morathi's getting some work done there. These Orc Biggins might have to give up on the fighting, while over here you can see Azag decides to dive in, gets involved against some of these Cold One Knights, against some of these Sisters of Slaughter as well, and then quickly turns around and tries to take to the air once more needs to keep a safe distance, pops Foe Seeker to get that speed buff as well, and immediately hit by Soul Stealer as well to try and cause a little bit of damage and also some replenishment for Morathi. That Soul Stealer could have done a lot of work potentially to some of these Savage Orcs as well, while back here you can see we actually get the Goblin Wolf Chariot driving right through these Shades, causing a fair bit of damage to health and morale, but unfortunately those Shades turn around and they fully surround that Goblin Wolf Chariot unit, try to shut it down once and for all, while here you can see we also have the Cold One Knights pushing in for a similar effect, just getting these Goblin Wolves to, well, Goblin Wolf Chariots, I should say, to rout, while over here we've got the Nasty Skulkers closing the gap into these Shades, and over here these Savage Orc Biggins decide to chase after these Cold One Knights, but then quickly decide that that's not worth it, turn around instead to chase after these Shades, and they will cause a fair bit of damage coming in from the side over there. They'll cause a lot of hurt to health and to morale, and we are shutting down some of that range support, which is absolutely crucial to do in this engagement over here. You can see Smoke Bomb comes down as well on these Shades, as well as these Cold One Knights, as Azag the Slaughterer tries to close the gap, gets a nice charge in here to try and finish these units off once and for all. In comes Terror and Routing. Morathi tries to dive in as well, but unfortunately she is just not lucky. She gets bogged down, she gets slowed down, and can't close the gap to Azag. Meanwhile, back over here you can see the Ragnarok Queen actually returns to the fight as well, just marching in, getting some shots in, and actually popping some spider hatchlings over here to, I think, occupy the Sisters of Slaughter momentarily, provide some support to the Squig Herd, and ultimately push forward and chase after these various Dark Elf units back here. As over here you can see we have the Goblin Wolf Chariot able to still fire away at Morathi. They've decided to stick around and fight a little bit longer. Morathi eats some shots. She does get hit by Spirit Leech as well from Azag, and ultimately turns around and I think wants to go in and shut down the Arachnarok Queen, but Azag is right here as well, so Morathi might be tempted away. She decides to stay engaged against the Queen. The Queen is very close to giving up on the fight, very low on morale, and there comes the rout. Azag needs to be very careful as Morathi is able to now turn around, take to the air, and chase after him, but you can see he decides to dive right into these Sisters of Slaughter and these Sisters of the Singing Doom. We also get a nice rear charge from the Goblin Wolf Chariot as Azag pulls away into safety, and we got Spider Hatchlings as well as Chariots just holding Morathi in place. Beautifully done. Meanwhile, back here you can see the Ragnarok Queen still routing, still not willing to fight, while this Goblin Wolf Chariot decides to charge right into the backs of these Sisters of Slaughter, scaring them off once and for all, and these Cold One Knights as well not having a good time, routing away, not really wanting to stick around and fight, as Morathi over here continues to try and chase after Azag, who's just dodging some shots from these Shades. Well-used Shades overall, but unfortunately Azag is just a little too quick for them, and over here as well, on the topic of being too quick, as Morathi gives chase to Azag, Azag is just a little too quick, so Morathi decides to give up on the chase, pulls back, and wants to shut down some of these other large units. There are some Goblin Wolf Chariots, a good rear charge might shut them down, a good charge on perhaps even these Savage Orc Biggins over here might take care of them. They are very low on morale. Comes in on these Goblin Wolf Chariots, tries to get a nice charge in there, unfortunately misses on that charge, and so the Goblin Wolf Chariot is able to get a little bit of damage done to these Shades, and then just rolls away into safety, trying to keep a safe distance from Morathi. Of course, Morathi's still trying to chase after them as Azag now comes in as well. Again, he has to be very careful, very close to Morathi now. Wants to take care of these Shades. I think once they eliminate them, get them to maybe shatter, and Morathi very quick on the chase now, trying to push after Azag. Azag is able to pop Foe Seeker and pull away into safety. As off in the distance you can see, we do have some of these Sisters of Slaughter willing to join back into the fray. We also have these Cold One Knights willing to join once more. So Morathi, I think, pulling back a little bit, maybe trying to buy some time for them to close the gap. Needs to be very careful over here as we have these Shades completely shattering, as Azag wanted to do, I think, and now you can see Morathi also using Soul Stealer once more in this little clump in just a moment's time, replenishing some of her hit points, causing some damage to these skirmishing range units that can also drive right through what's left of the Dark Elf Infantry. But as you can see, the Dark Elf Infantry is very quick to give up on the fight, and so too is Morathi. Just like that, the Dark Elves fall, and a Pyrrhic victory for the Greenskins. Now, I'm a big fan of these Savage Orcs, and this is a perfect example of why. Especially in this matchup. With their physical resistance, there isn't much that the Dark Elves can bring cheaply to keep them in check. They were able to survive and come out on top almost all across the board for long enough to make a very big impact on the battle, and with some help from a giant spider, even anti-infantry units stood little chance. Bringing next to no magical damage output against Greenskins is a bad idea. Even a single Flaming Sword of Ruin could have gone a very long way. Unfortunately, it was Morathi on the field today, and her being just short on speed compared to Azag didn't help either. Ultimately, the Greenskins played savagely and proved more bloodthirsty than Morathi and her sisters. As always, make sure you subscribe to this channel for more Total War content and keep sending in those battle replays. I do think it's one of the best ways to learn, and it's always nice to highlight such amazing battles from the community. I'd also like to thank all of my patrons for supporting the channel on a month-to-month basis, making a huge difference in keeping us alive and running smoothly. Thank you all very much for watching. I'll see you on the battlefield.